So what's the Galaxy S24 Plus camera quality like with hardware that wasn't upgraded for 3 generations? Well, I tested this phone against the latest and greatest Pixel and iPhone, and it's pretty obvious to me that Pixels take better photos and the iPhone shoots better video. But even with the more stagnant camera specs compared to the Pixel and iPhone, the Galaxy S24 camera system is good, just not the best at anything. I wish I had more to say than that, but that's all I got to get us into my full camera review of the Galaxy S24 Plus. Let's start with crispy 4K video samples shot in an expensive classroom building. There's a decent amount of evenly distributed light, and software stabilization is turned on. You can see I kind of throw the camera around and switch between the lenses to give a first impression of the S24 Plus's video quality in decent lighting conditions. It's up to the task of giving good results in this environment. Now let's move locations in this same building to climb some steps. Things look pretty good here, even though there's less light than in the first clip, and one thing I'll point out is the Galaxy struggled less with this exact shot versus the Pixel, both in noise levels and stabilization. Specifically, the software stabilization is doing better on the Galaxy, where there's no jumpiness when taking steps. But speaking of stabilization, let's turn software stabilization off with these shots on the roof. The reason I turned off stabilization was so we can see all the pixels from the camera sensor to fully evaluate image quality. That's looking great on the S24 Plus. The blazing sun brings out excellent colors, contrast, and sharpness with not a drop of noise. This phone sits at the top level of Android video quality. But it goes without saying, there's a quality gap between Android flagships and iPhones, where the iPhone is the best phone for shooting video, full stop. Now let's look at this shot practically outside with how massive these windows are, which let in a whole lot of light. Software stabilization is still off, and things are looking pretty good, as is the autofocus when I approach the camera. The camera does introduce a slightly difficult HDR scenario, being black against a very bright and light-colored background, but the S24 Plus does about as good as any other phone would when shooting video. Let's take a look at these night shots from the roof as I round out my thoughts on video with the S24 Plus back cameras. I'll reiterate, it does better than the Pixel at preserving image quality when conditions get worse. But at the same time, the iPhone is better in a lot of ways. Most importantly, noise levels and shutter speed in low-light scenarios. But it's good we're even having this conversation because for other phones like the Pixel, there's no comparison to the iPhone, where here, you can pit them against each other for a bit even though the iPhone comes out on top. Last but not least, here's some front camera video from the S24 Plus. There's autofocus here, which I test out in this video clip, and overall things are looking good here. That about wraps up video for this phone. As for photos, let's start with snaps that jump between the 3 zoom levels: 0.6x ultrawide, 1x main, and 3x telephoto. There's nothing that jumps out about the hardware here, with only 12 megapixels on the ultrawide and 10 megapixels on the telephoto, but honestly, the lenses do better than you'd expect knowing that. The main camera looks the best as expected, but the ultrawide and telephoto lenses get quite close to the quality and look of the main in most conditions. Now let's look at photos in ideal conditions, meaning good amounts of evenly distributed light. These photos are objectively good as a blank slate, but the processing and overall look isn't my favorite. The best way I can describe the advantage the Pixel has over the Galaxy is contrast versus clarity adjustments in Lightroom. The Galaxy looks like it uses contrast to get everything looking okay, but the Pixel uses clarity, which is a smarter adjustment that adds structure, texture, and depth. You can also see from the photos like this of my camera that the S24 Plus is not very aggressive with brightening shadows, and the Pixel probably would have done a better job brightening up the camera here. Real quick, here's a selfie that looks pretty good, nice and sharp because of the autofocus. And rounding things out, let's get into night shots powered by Nightography. Nightography is the engine behind the Galaxy's night mode, and it does multi-frame AI things to take better low-light photos. I used the Galaxy's night mode in various low-light scenarios, and I think all the photos look good. But I'll very quickly say I still like the Pixel's photos better in low light, but to be clear, the S24 Plus does better than the iPhone's night mode, which you have to beg and plead to actually turn on. So that was the last set of photos I wanted to look at, which means it's wrap-up time. I started the video saying the Galaxy is a jack of all trades, master of none as far as the camera goes. And I think you'll probably agree after seeing all those camera samples that the Galaxy isn't the best at anything. Except maybe 8K video, which is a niche feature most people wouldn't care about. But even though you could maybe call the S24 Plus camera mediocre because of that, it's still probably good for a lot of people that want middle-of-the-road camera performance instead of having to pick between photos and videos. Let me know what you think in the comments, subscribe for more quality tech videos, and I'll see you later.